Hello, welcome back to the David Watson podcast. In this episode, I spoke with Lee Woodman, an award-winning poet and cultural commentator, and has a fascinating history, and like all good poets, an insight into a way to see the world. And I really enjoyed it, and I hope you do too. Hello, welcome to the David Watson podcast. We're going to go a bit more light-hearted than our deep little chat that we just had. But how are things on the whole? How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. Thank you. I don't love winter, and I'm in Rhinebeck, New York, which is icy and cold right now, but I'll get over it.
Yeah. Just quickly, you were saying just before we started recording, you was in Scandinavia in the summer, and you did a little tour. What took you there?
It was a vacation. It was a break from working, and it was a place I had never been before. And I was very, very interested in a tour that had visits to the big cities as well as lots of coach travel through rural areas. And I knew those two would be so different, the rural areas from the cities, and I really enjoyed that. I was also so impressed by uh, the Scandinavian care for the environment and, their trash disposal, and it was so clean.
Yeah.
That really surprised me. Really
Yeah,
wonderful. But
yeah,
anyway,
they've done well over the years with their philosophy around kind of living with nature, keeping things clean. I think sometimes, and I might be wrong, I have a friend in Norway, and I went over for the first time last year. And I think sometimes because they're quite large companies with countries with small populations. Like Norway is bigger than the United Kingdom, but it has 5 million people, and the United Kingdom has 70. I think you have to be very clever about how you dispose of things and how you develop your infrastructure, because it's got to go a long way across a few people.
yeah. It's a huge country, and oh my goodness, the difference between the high mountains and the deep fjords. Quite impressive. One thing that I was going to tell you is I am American, but I actually grew up overseas.
Oh,
So yes, I my father was in World War II in the invasion of Normandy, and then he and very much a Francophile, stayed during Restoration, and then was invited to teach at the University of Strasbourg. So my mother and my sister and I went along, and there were quite a few strikes and difficulties in Strasbourg at the time. So we stayed in Paris, and he would come home on the weekend. And why did I want to tell you that? Well, then he was invited by the State Department to go to India as cultural attaché. And my mom, who was a ballet dancer, trained in New York, um, obviously went to India with him and my sister and I, and started an international dance school there. So the things that I am passionate about have a lot to do with global culture and sounds and colors and tastes and haves and have-nots. And, it goes to what we were talking about earlier about how you form your worldview.
but that is a really wonderful thing, because I was saying to you, it's just like if one of the things that I like to try and do, or I encourage other people to do, is if somebody's passionate, just find out a little bit what makes them passionate. And you've just said the most remarkable thing. You grew up in Paris after the Second World War, and then with your father and your mum and your sister, you went to India and opened a ballet school, and you trained in New York Ballet. And you just like, oh, hang on a second, before we get to colour scapes, let's just have a conversation about that, because Paris had to rebuild after the war, and but some of the most iconic brands also grew out of that. And when were you? What do you remember? Sort of.
Well, I was two when we went there, and so in essence, French was my first language. I had started to learn a little bit from between 1 to 2 in the States, but then we went to Paris until I was 4. And then the biggest part of my growing up was 10 years in India, first in Madras, which is now Chennai, and then New Delhi. And it was there that my mother started her international touring school. And we used to dance for Mother Teresa's flood reliefs.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
And I was totally passionate about dance all the way growing up. And then when we came back from India, I was a sophomore in high school, but continued dance training. And, um, it was a dream at age,
Yeah,
whatever,
well,
6 through 14.
because it is though, isn't it? Because India, it's very difficult for people to understand by today's standards that going to live in India at that age, around that time, nobody was doing that. It was, people didn't get on a plane to go on holiday. Nobody,
No.
Westerners didn't go and visit kind of India to just go and travel, just to enjoy the culture. There was no infrastructure. There was no internet. And to go there in that time when it was still very much kind of, well, it just wouldn't exist today. That India doesn't
Well, it
exist.
was just post Raj, so a lot of that era hung over, um, and it's very different now. I went back in 2010 with my then husband just to go back to where I lived and where I went to school, and it was so different. The population had tripled, pollution
Yeah,
was staggering. Whereas when I grew up, we used to go to Kashmir in the summer for the cool, beautiful weather. And the sky was just sparkling blue, and Dal Lake was, swimmable, and we'd jump off the houseboats into the water. So it
yeah.
was quite a wonderful experience. But I mention it because, I think my interest in, well, first of all, language, French, then Hindi, and then in school I studied more French, Spanish, and just love the sound of different languages. And then being in France and India, and then coming to the States, the sense of smell and color and touch and music just was so much broader than I could have ever had just being in one place.
What was it like, that transition from you're living in Chennai, or what's now Chennai, and where did you return to in the United States? Was it back to New York?
No, and my father's from New Hampshire, and my mother, they were um, dyed-in-the-wool New Englanders. He was from Franklin, New Hampshire. She was from Boston, Massachusetts. But they were very curious. They were very adventuresome. You know, w- when I was born, and my mother was 8 months pregnant with third, our next sister, and people would just be horrified and say to her, how could you go to India? And she said, I think a lot of babies have been born in
Yeah,
India.
yeah, one or two, one or two. Baby. But what was that So where did you end up when you left? When did you come
Well,
back to?
I ended up in New London, New Hampshire. My father took a job as a college president of a small 2-year women's college in New London, New Hampshire. And so I went from enormous city, New Delhi, to a small town in New England where there were 33 in my high school class. That's
Jesus.
it. 33 people. Yeah. And, because we had studied, I had been in uh, Indian Catholic convent in Madras, and then in British day school, and then in international school in Delhi. So all different levels of study and topics of study. So when I got back, I was supposed to be a sophomore in high school, but I had absolutely no idea what that would be because I was put in advanced French and not advanced math. And, homeroom was just such a weird
Mm.
word to me. What is home and what is a room? You know,
What decade was this?
52 to 62.
So when you returned to America in the 60s?
14. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you went
Yeah.
from India to 1960s America like that.
Yeah.
What a culture shock
Yeah.
that would have been.
Oh my. Oh my. I was curious. I had an American passport since I was 4 years old, but had no idea what it meant to be American. No idea at all. So everything was kind of a shock. Everything seemed so big, big roads and
Big cars,
big,
big engines.
big cars. And I was a tiny person, and all the girls in my class were, well into puberty, large breasts. There I was, a peanut with little tiny feet.
Yeah. But it,
So,
because
you know,
that's a crazy way at 14 to come back to America in 1962, because
mhm.
effectively it was probably regarded economically, musically, and culturally as one of America's best decades.
It was, and I loved that. I came extremely passionate about American music, and yeah, and when uh, in my career, which was largely in radio and television at the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C., I remembered all the songs from India, and I knew all the nursery rhymes from India, and then to come back in the '60s to the United States and be introduced to, oh my gosh, rock and roll and the blues and country
Yeah.
music, and I just thought I had gone to heaven.
Oh, I can imagine. I can imagine. And so how do we get from 1960s heaven to colorscapes?
Okay. Oh, it's a great question. Well, I've always been a writer. My sister and I, from the time we were in India and knew how to write and speak, we would write a newsletter, and our parents were our audience, but we would put on plays in the driveway, and so we're thinking that a trunk full of clothes that my mother had put together became our theater, and we had a bicycle and the neighbor's horse, and we would put on plays like Ichabod Crane. The horse would plod slowly away, and I'd be riding the bicycle furiously after the horse. And anyway, so the interest in theater. And then when I went to college, went to graduate school, I was going to major in French, but I took my first history of art class and I just about fell out of my chair. I was just smitten. And then I took studio art and in graduate school, phenomenology of perception and color theory. And then I did a little bit of teaching in art at various levels, elementary, high school, and college. But I was fascinated by radio, and then after learning the trade and being lucky enough to join a company in Washington and produce children's radio theater, I was offered a job at the Smithsonian in television, and there I was able to bring back all the interest in visuals from my art training, and so writing, art, dance, theater, poetry to me is kind of the umbrella that brings it all together. So I have six books now, all under the umbrella of Scapes. And there's Homescapes, that was about growing up in India and coming to the United States to learn what it was to be American. Then there was Mindscapes, which was reactions to the world as a woman. Artscapes, poems inspired by sculpture, um, painting, dance, music, and now color. So, color. Should I tell you about color?
Yeah, yeah, please do.
Okay, well, I think color is just a total fascination for everyone, from the time you're a child, uh, when one of the first things you love and think about is paint colors and mixing things, and you have a favorite color, and then it goes to adults, and oh my goodness, we revel in the colors of nature. We have architects and designers who think about the way you enter into a building or into a space, what color does to affect the emotions. And then doctors and psychiatrists and hospitals are thinking about color when they, paint their walls and choose their couches and talk to people. So then drawing in the cultural background, oh my gosh, different countries just see color so differently, and where in the States, black is the color of mourning. In India, white is the color of mourning.
Interesting.
So yes, people wear white when they are burying their dead and burning them, at Varanasi and the burning ghats. They'll be in white. So, gosh, there's just so many color facts about different cultures that I found so interesting. So I decided to poems.
So, when you with Colorscape, so how have you put this into a book?
Okay. um, I did. So often people think poets just the muse appears and you sit down and you write, or
Yeah.
you're outside and you write. It's not that way, at least for me, at all. I always carry a little notebook with me, and I stare a lot and I listen a lot, and I'm always jotting down little notes about, oh, the red-tailed hawk, or the Miro painting, or the way someone says something,
Yeah.
in a British accent, and I'll write that down. So, and then I do research. Then I go and find out all about that red-tailed hawk or Miro, and really do a lot of research. And then I'll go back and, in longhand, just start jotting some notes, and I will pick a format in poetry according to what the topic dictates. So it's not always free verse. It's not always, a sonnet or a haiku or a villanelle or a pantoum. I really think about that, the sound. And in color, I first wanted to learn about the sources of color. I wanted to learn, going back into Egyptian times, mud, rocks, soil, shells, all these things were used to make browns and reds, and then um, uh, flowers and insects uh, in other countries. And then during the Industrial Revolution, all of a sudden, you know, chemicals were added to the mix. So I did a lot of study about sources, and then I also, because I had started to learn about color theory in school, I wanted to know about how color affects people's emotions. And so I read a lot about seasonal affectation disorder, and uh, in different cultures, how yellow is seen as a evil color, or
Okay.
a happy color, or red is seen as a angry color or a joyful color. And so I did research there. And then the last thing, because I love writing poems based on artwork, I did a lot of reading into why Van Gogh was so intense about getting the right yellow for sunflowers, or why Yves Klein in France had to patent a certain blue, which was actually very toxic, and he essentially died from the toxicity because he used to smear it on his own body and on his models, and they would lie on canvases and flat surfaces, and the blue would transfer. So, wow, that's passion
Yeah.
when you start reading about how different artists have just gone on this search. So in the book, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at it or not, but there are poems about certain colors like silver or white or black, and then there are poems about seasons, how our emotions change when we see summer coming to an end or winter coming to the fore. And then poems on artists like Caravaggio. So you have your pick. I can read whatever you'd like.
No, it's good. It's good. It's interesting because you said something about Van Gogh and the sunflowers, and it reminded me. It's got to be over 10 years, if not more. But I've spent a lot of time in France surfing, so I've driven up and down
Oh,
the west coast of France significantly, like to the point that we don't even need a map anymore. Um, and sometimes just because of the nature of surfing, you might kind of get off the ferry or be somewhere, then the weather changes, and you might actually have a 7 or 8 hour drive to the next good spot, because the weather's changed where you are. So the good weather, or maybe the good surf, you've got to go, and that's the whole point of camping. And I was lucky enough to drive through the region where Van Gogh was painting when sunflowers were out, and I cannot explain to people what it's like to drive down a road and all you can see, there's nothing else to see other than fields and fields and fields of yellow sunflowers. It's
extraordinary.
Genuinely like, wow, okay. And
Yeah.
and when you see, you are talking acres, hectares, miles of just sunflowers. Every field is sunflowers. And you're just driving down a road for the next 20 minutes and all you see is sunflowers. And the sun is out, the sky is blue. It's as cliche as you can make it. It's one of the most simple, mind-blowing things I've ever experienced in my life.
Yeah, yeah,
And I don't know how to explain that.
Yeah. Imagine fields of poppies in another country, or fields of tulips.
Oh, yeah.
In it is extraordinary.
Yeah, it is. And when you see these in real life, you can kind of, and all I remember as soon as I seen it is I realised, and also there were signs kind of letting you know that it was kind of that region that Van Gogh had painted from. But you suddenly kind of understood why he painted it. Yeah. It's like he woke up one morning, looked out of a window, saw what I was seeing, and he was like, okay, I have to do something about this. There was a passion, a magnificence that had to be captured. And like I said, the thing that I enjoy about that moment the most is, if I break it down simply, we're talking about a sunflower. We're just talking about sunflowers. We're just that's it. And the three things that happened were There were sunflowers, blue skies, and sunshine. That's it. It doesn't get any simpler. And that's why I say it's the simplest thing I've ever seen that's blown my mind. It just was like, okay, there's 3 elements to this, and it's one of the most beautiful things I've ever experienced.
And then if you realize that color doesn't really physically exist in the objects, it's a perception created by your brain. It's interpreting different wavelengths of light.
And how surfaces absorb light as well. And then
people see color so differently. You know, men and women have different chromosomes, and they see differently. And they see colors differently.
People don't realize that our eyes, men and women, have different receptors in their eyes that pick up different wavelengths of light, or light, I can't remember, light waves. So we do literally see colors differently. And because of that, we experience them differently. And
absolutely.
And then there is and then it's what surfaces light on and what light is reflecting off it, because that's what you're seeing is a reflection of something, in a sense, that your eyes pick up, which your brain then interprets.
Yeah. So
and
the other thing that I thought was fascinating, and there's a wonderful Canadian author, Cassia St. Clair, who has done deep color studies, and what she brings out in her books is there are families of colors. You know, we think, oh, there's a red and a blue and a yellow and a green. Well, within a family, for instance, green, there's Sheely green, verdigris, pine, apple green, moss, kelp, mantis, sap.
Yeah.
And so when you think of the sounds of that and what you can do with poetry, just bringing through sound into vision, colors. Yeah. It's really fun.
It is.
I'd love to read something to you.
Please do.
Okay. So you choose Purple Passion, Provocative Pink.
Pink is my favorite color.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know. It's an unusual choice for a bloke. And it took me many years to be comfortable with the fact that my favorite color is pink. You can imagine as a young man growing up, everyone's like, what's your favourite colour of a boy at school? And all the boys like red, black or white, you know, and I was just like, and honestly, it took me decades to be comfortable with like, no, my favourite colour is pink. It just is.
Well, you know what? Years ago, pink was a colour for boys. It was.
I knew I was ahead of the curve.
Girls, you were way ahead of the curve because it was considered not right for girls. Girls should be a quieter color.
I agree.
So, all right.
I'm even more certain I'm right. Please do.
Okay, well, you're awesome. Anyway, Provocative Pink. And this is a good example how color changes over time. Like foods that go in and out of favor, so goes color. Coffee, once bad for you, then good, now questionable. Pink has gone through many reversals. As early as 1893, pink was for boys. Why? It was deemed a stronger color than blue. Girls were too dainty and delicate for pink. Eggs, first high cholesterol killers, are now thought to be effective high protein, especially the whites. Puce, a whitish shade of pink, was exploited by Marie Antoinette. King Louis XVI hated the color of fleas. He also hated her. Still, ladies in court swooned in adoration of their queen and mimicked the puce of her gowns. Pepto-Bismol pink was recommended by shrinks as a soothing room color for traumatized patients. Mountbatten pink, a lavender gray shade, was seen as the best camouflage for steamer funnels in World War I. They got hidden in the gloaming. Maxi skirts were popular in the mod 60s and grunge 90s. Minis rose above the knees in the 60s. When pop artists designed album covers in the 60s, Pink turned bright and glowing. When Crayola manufactured pink highlighters, plain text turned attention grabbing. Oh, how we change our hair from braids to bobs to bangs, how we switch from flares to leggings to capris. Yes, we yearn for novelty. And for the last word on provocative pinks, Baker Miller pink, shocking pink, fuchsia, fluorescent. When it comes to flowers, the dernier cri is amaranth, ranging from cherry red to dusty grape to rich plum. All varieties of pink roses turn green with envy.
That's lovely. That's beautiful. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome.
But it's
So you were right about pink.
yeah. Like I said, it's a strange one because I think that's favorite colors is an interesting thing because it doesn't make any sense. It's just like whenever you see this particular color, for some reason, I like that over everything else. And there's no sense to that, and that's why I like it.
Well, there may be more sense than we know. You know, we're thought to have five senses, but I actually think there are many, many more than
Yeah,
that.
there are.
That we know where we are in space. That's kind of a different sense. And we know when someone is behind us, not necessarily from sound,
Mm.
but a sense,
Yeah,
a sense. And so I do think, and some people are colorblind. Some people, well, I lost vision in one eye after a concussion only 8 years ago, and so I had to learn how to walk again, drive again. My brain had to see basically with one eye what two eyes had seen before.
yeah.
And someone asked me when I was doing a reading recently whether my favorite color had changed over the time I was researching colorscapes. And probably not, but I thought it was a fascinating question. You know,
Yeah.
maybe now that I know that there are different shades of blue and green, which would be, I would have thought, my favorites. But when you start to investigate army green or royal blue, things go very differently.
And it's interesting as well how colours suit certain items. So you can, you know, I used to have a white an Audi TT, and it was called Audi White, and I don't like that car in any other colour.
Ah, well,
It's just,
huh.
but in that,
I have a kind of a sparkly white Nissan,
yeah,
and just white wouldn't be right, but it has just a little bit of silver in it.
yeah, because I think the Audi was called Glacier White or something. I might have the old rattle can. I've still got it. Yeah, I've forgotten what it was called. What was it? It's so faded this colour now, or the sticker on the can. But it was like it's like a glacier white or something, or an alpine white or something they called it. But whenever I see TTs in different colours, green, black, blue, red, or whatever, I don't like it. But in white, it was fine.
Well, whites, there are so many shades of white. Oh, by the way, you know what Pantone color is? Pantone is uh, uh, it's a kind of a standard for a matching system. So it's a proprietary naming system in a variety of industries. So graphic design, fashion
Yeah.
design, automobile color, and all of that. So this year, Cloud Dancer is Pantone's color of the year for 2026. And here's what their advertising campaign says: it's an off white that is a whisper of calm in a noisy world?
I would
Cloud
like to
dancer.
cloud dancer. I would like to be able to sit in the room. So do you know when I said like I like to learn about people's passions, right? I have a fascination with, but it can also give me the ick with things when people, and I think it's sometimes it's actually a reflection of your limitation, your own limitations. So, and what I mean is like wine tasters can fall into that because they can taste things that I can't taste, and they can start
and describe them.
Yes, and when they describe something, and I take a swig, a swill, or a taste, or a slurp, and a smell, and all I can taste is wine, and you've got this magnificent kind of explosion of expression of flavours and moments, because they will describe a moment within the taste, and
Yeah.
and I do think it comes from a place of resentment and jealousy. I just like that gives me the ick that you can do that, and I can really struggle to embrace that passion, but only because I when I've tried some. So when I like that explanation of dancing in clouds, I can imagine there is this expressionable person who has a sort of vision and can share it and explain it and express it, and I'm like, you bastard, I could never do that.
Well, their visual logo for Cloud Dancer is this woman with extremely long legs and arms leaping up in off-white pantsuit with flowy arms and flowy legs, and there are clouds above her. It's brilliant. It's brilliant, but
Because
it's really synesthesia, isn't it? When you were talking about wine and hearing a word, and then all of a sudden maybe you could taste blueberry, or
yeah,
you could taste earth tones. It's the suggestion, and you're right. How do people learn these things so personally or intimately that they can use a color or a berry to describe a taste?
what it reminds me of I was in Munich in December with some friends. I've got friends that live there, so me and my friend Dean we went to the Olympic Park, which was built for the 1972 Munich Olympics, and there's this magnificent steel structure, almost like a web, but it's kind of almost like that circus high top feel, because it's peaks and troughs. And there's two pictures of the two German designers, and we kind of were discussing, because we were just fascinated, because you're talking about this was designed in the 60s, so every nut, bolt, everything that was worked out was done by some person with a pencil and paper. They just sat there with rulers, compass, and let's design this thing. And the staggering attention to detail. And they had a picture of the two main designers, and we were kind of joking about what they were like based on their pictures, and one of them was very serious. And I said to my friend Dean, you can tell he's never laughed at a joke in his life. And but there was an expression in their design, and this thing is like the size of a shopping mall. But the transitions, you can still go into the swimming pool today. It's open to the public, but you don't realise as you walk into the swimming pool foyer, you're still stood on the same cobblestones that are outside, and it just flows seamlessly. And there was no way to put that on a computer screen to see what that vision would look like. Yeah. It was all in here and in somebody's heart,
his head.
And to be able to do that, and it had been snowing, and it snowed overnight. There was a few inches of snow, and it was starting to melt, and it was starting to rain. So the water has started to cascade off this circus top tent type thing. And it's acres, shopping mall size. This place is massive. And it's all a mixture of indoors and outdoors without you ever realising you're indoors or outdoors, because you're all undercover. And the angle these various roofs and curvature of these like circus top type roofs directs the water down with perfect precision, that as it flows off, it drops into like a 2-foot circumference hole. And I was just like, somebody thought about that detail on just
Yeah.
me. But then I can see that same structure of vision in your poem.
Oh, thank you.
But it comes from the same place. Somebody has sat quietly. How do I make? What is it that needs to work? How does it happen?
Yeah.
And we looked at it and was just like, this was an example of not we're better than you. This is what people are capable of.
Well, observation and, we hear, but we don't necessarily listen. We look, but we don't necessarily see. And so I think the job of a poet is to stare, listen, touch everything, to understand textures and.
But it's that.
So I have.
So I was just going to say, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off mid-thought. I was just going to say, but it's not only that staring, it's that ability to question, what do I see? What do I feel? What do I see?
Yeah. And describe and go to the specific, to use just emotional words, take away the emotion. But if you use, the sharpest beak of a certain hawk and have it circling above a rabbit, you feel more emotion than if you say fear.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly that. You can create it without almost saying it. It becomes a lived experience as the words come out.
Certain people throughout history have thought about color and emotion, and I have two very short examples I'd like to share with you. Johann Wolfgang von Goethe wrote lots about color and philosophy of color. And then Joseph Albers, who taught at the mountain school here in the States, started putting the same color, pale yellow, next to a blue and then next to a green, and the yellow would change.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So here's an example about, after reading Color Theory by both of them, this is a rhyming poem called Shades of Anger. Broad brushstrokes of rage are red, streaked by dark brown doomsday dread. But mine hold peaks of bluish darts, emerging from black where hatred starts.
Nice. Just quickly, because I'm just conscious of time.
Yeah.
Where can people find you?
Oh, thank you for asking. Very simple. I have a very detailed website, and it's poetleewoodman.com. That's all you have to Google, Poet Lee Woodman, all one word, .com. And there's a bit about my background. There are pages for each of the 6 books and what the inspiration was. I also have done audio and video, so you can actually listen to my reading. And for me, performance is everything. That's what excites me most about. That's what I'm most passionate about with poetry is the spoken word and the sharing of the sound and the meaning with people in the same room. It's thrilling, and I think adolescents are really good at this because of hip hop culture and rap.
Yeah.
They have learned, they memorize. Their lyrics are phenomenal, and they know how to compete. It's fascinating. Yeah.
I know. I agree.
So yeah, poetleewoodman.com.
Perfect.
Sorry.
And no, you're good. I have a random question that I always like to ask everybody. but I'm going to ask it to you twice in two different ways. So the first one is the standard one. If you could imagine you have a time machine, the time machine has to be a vehicle of some sort, like a car. What car would you use? Where would you go? And what would be playing on the radio?
I love it. Well, I would probably go in my Nissan Rogue, and I would try. This is totally possible in my mind. I would
100%.
go into the galaxies, and I would drive around looking into black holes and
Wow.
trace the stars. And I don't know if I would really want to listen to the radio. I probably want to listen to whatever I thought sounds could be in space.
I like that. That is good. I like that. Now, my second version of that question is, I don't need to know what the time machine is. Where would you go in history, and which poet would you see to write a poem about a landscape that you like?
Oh, I would go to New York City. I would want to meet Frank O'Hara, who used to work in the museum world, but he would go out at lunchtime and he wrote series of poems called I Do This, I Do That. And they could be about anything he saw. They could be about people that he jammed with, jazz musicians, painters that he liked. It was a very conversational time when artists of many different disciplines would get together to share.
Lee, that's perfect. Thank you very much for your time. I've really enjoyed it.
I've enjoyed you so much, and keep doing what you're doing. It's just wonderful to be interviewed by a person like you.
Oh, thank you. That's really kind. Thank you very much. And that was Lee. And there's a phrase that springs to mind when they say, step back or sit back and smell the coffee. And really, it's a way of explaining, saying to you, pause for a moment, take a second. You don't have to rush through everything. And from the poems that Lee read out, the expression and the understanding, as my dog walked through the door, and like, this is a good example. Rather than stop recording because the dog's walked through the door, I've just stopped to stroke the dog. And sometimes one of the things that poetry does extremely well is gets you to just pause, reflect, have a look around. What do you see? And more importantly, how do you see it? And please do check out Lee. Her website will be in the description. And wherever you're from, whatever you believe, please do take care and be blessed. Thank you.